another episode of Two Guys on the Mic. I am Scott, joined with Tony in the middle, Mike over there on the far side. If you are not subscribed, please subscribe below as we are trying to grow our channel. Guys, we are now out of the divisional round, heading into the conference championships. Special teams played a huge part in every game. All four losing teams had one thing in common, and that was a missed field goal.
I don't think that the Texans mattered. Right? Out of all the games, that's the one that didn't matter.
It didn't, but it's just weird to have all these missed field goals. Even San Francisco had that. Moody had that field goal blocked on his first attempt.
Well, real quick, you say it didn't matter, but they make that and they go into halftime with a lead.
They do, but when we're talking about that game,
yeah, I have a lot to say. Yeah, I agree, Scott.
Yeah, so obviously we're going to start with the 49er game. I will be the first one to admit Green Bay outplayed San Francisco, and San Francisco is extremely, extremely lucky to come out of that that game with a win. I mean, I'm pretty on the San Francisco's first series. Pretty should have had a pick six. They should have been down 10-0 immediately, you know, and that would have really hurt San Francisco in a bigger way than you would really think, because Green Bay's first drive, even though it only ended in a field goal, it took up half the first quarter. It was such a long drive, and then for you to go out and throw a pick six and then be down 10-0 with about 5 minutes left in the first quarter. I'm not saying it would have caused the Niners to lose. It could have been a different outcome as the game went on, but with the way that game ended up going, being down 10-0 would have been like a really, really big deal. So,
yeah.
With that said, I also didn't think Jordan Love played very well. Everyone's been very all over. If you watch all the sports channels, everyone has just like laid into Brock Purdy, talking about how he was the weakest link on the field. I don't necessarily agree with that.
Yeah, I don't agree with that either.
But I didn't think either quarterback looked good. If you think about some of the completions that Love had on their first drive, you had Dre Greenlaw. He slipped on what was the third down conversion. He would have been covering the tight end. Then you had the touchdown to, who was that? That was to Bo Melton. Okay, so that drive that they ended up getting a touchdown. You have that. Well, Mike, what was that? 41-yard PI on 3rd and 15.
Yeah, it was something like 3rd and 15, and it was a 40. Yeah, I think it was 41-yard defensive pass interference.
So the next play, I think it was the next play, they throw the touchdown to Bo Melton. The safety slipped. That's why he was completely wide open. Romeo Doubs, another, Charvarius Ward was covering him, slipped. He has like a 30, 40-yard gain. So when I look at to some of the stats that Jordan Love had, that's 3 completions I can think of, one of them being a touchdown, that the field conditions played a part in. So if you're going to sit there and criticize Brock Purdy on his poor performance, you also have to look at the other side to where, okay, maybe Love had a couple completions that may not have happened had the field not been in the condition that it was. And I thought it was really weird that San Francisco's players were slipping and Green Bay's wasn't. I thought that was really interesting. But the stats between Love and Purdy. So Love was 21-34, 194 yards, 2 touchdowns, 2 picks. That's a 61% completion Purdy, and completion percentage Purdy. 22-39, 252, a touchdown, no picks, although he should have had 2. Mm-hmm. He should have had 2, and 56%. So with that said, Tony, you're the neutral fan here, you know, and I don't want to sound biased. What's your take on from watching the game? What is your take on both sides?
So both sides, my initial take is it sucks because I hate to say this, but it kind of goes back to what we've been saying about Brock Purdy all along. And I'm not saying he's bad, but I am saying that he's just above average, close to elite, but not at that top tier 1 quarterback. He's barely at the bottom end of tier 2. I think Brock Purdy is the type of quarterback where the team needs to elevate him, and he can compete. Like, he does well, but then he has games like this. And so if the team doesn't do well, they all just don't do well. Like, that game was just a mess on both sides. Like, the Niners should have decimated them, like buried them, even though people were like, oh, Green Bay's come out of the left. Green Bay looked like Green Bay from all season. And so the fact that the Niners didn't decimate them just goes to show that the Niners are beatable. Now, if they play like that against the Ravens, they're going to lose again. So I feel like Brock Purdy needs to do some soul searching when it comes to flipping the script, right? You look at CJ Stroud, and I know we'll talk about that game, but you look at CJ Stroud, he elevates his team. I don't think Brock Purdy elevates the Niners. I think he needs the Niners to elevate him. And
that's a good take.
That's my opinion.
Mike, what was your take on the game?
It should not have been as close as it was. I think the elements had a lot to do with it on both ends. You know, if you look at some of the plays after the snap, Purdy's got the ball in his hand and he's trying to he's wiping off his throwing hand.
Mid play.
You know, he started off the game wearing the glove. I don't think he wore it after the first drive. But I do think that the wet ball and the rain had more to do with it than a lot of people, want to tend to say. That being said, Niners could not stop Aaron Jones on the ground. It was the first 100-yard rusher that they've allowed in, 50-something games?
51 games.
Which is ridiculous. And that was all Aaron Jones. I mean, 18 rushes for 108 yards. So, also on the flip side of that, and I brought this up last week, were the weeks off going to have any rust? So was there some rust on Purdy as well?
That's a good point, Mike. And I think
he did not play for 3 weeks.
That's a good point. And that's a good point. I think all the starters, because you guys didn't play Bosa and stuff like that. I think that does play a big part into it. There is some rust there, right? Let them get there. Now they could come into next week. I feel like if that rust is gone, and if what Mike is saying is right, because I think there's like a 50% chance that what Mike is saying is true, because I don't disagree with it. But I think next week, if that rust is gone, they're like, all right, we're our gears are no longer grinding, like we're smoothed out, we got some oil, we're running, we're cooking. They're gonna demolish the Lions, right? It doesn't matter how well the Lions play, they eat them alive. So yeah. I think if they do, I think Mike's point just gets proven.
Yeah. So here's my take on the Purdy situation. I think that people are very unfair in their evaluation of him. Of the 4 quarterbacks that are left in the playoffs right now, what does Mahomes, Jackson, and Goff all have in common?
They're all first-round picks.
They were all selected to be franchise quarterbacks. Brock Purdy was not. Brock Purdy, at the beginning of last season, was a third-string quarterback. Okay? Now, let's not forget, now he has taken the 49ers to the conference championship 2 years in a row. Okay? That's not just accidental. Okay? It doesn't just happen by accident. You don't take over a team that late in the season, take them to the NFC championship last year. And obviously, we all know what happened. We won't talk about that. But here we are. And there was a lot of pressure on him to win this game. Kyle Shanahan going into the fourth quarter, trailing by 7 points or more, was 0-30. Okay. Brock Purdy didn't have a comeback, I don't think, like all season where he was down by that much in the second half. For him to come out and do that in the second half, I think really speaks volumes about him. That last drive, he was 6 for 7 for, I believe it was 41 yards. He had 11 yards on the ground as well. In fact, he would have been perfect had George Kittle not dropped that pass. So yeah, he was not great for a majority of the game, but when it came down to the season on the line, he stepped up and he looked like any one of those other guys that are still left. Far as
to be the devil's advocate here, like that sounds like somebody I'm familiar with Derek Carr. He's the king of comebacks, right? But it never got us anywhere. Obviously, you guys are in the championship. I'm not saying he's never had to do that. And the fact that he did it, great. But he should have never been in that position in the first place with the team that you guys have. So I think I'm going to sit on Mike's chair here and just say, look, I think it's a rust. I think if they come out and demolish the Lions, they're cooking. But I do want to say this: if that what Mike is saying is true, how's that week off before the Super Bowl going to do to them?
I think 1 week off is fine. It's the same thing as
as your buy.
as having a bye week. I think resting starters week 18, then you have the bye week, and then you come in and you play a team as hot as Green Bay. Yeah, there's gonna be rust. San Francisco didn't even have a sack. No sacks. They got lucky. Luckily, they got the 2 turnovers that they did. But I will say this: the future in Green Bay right now, it looks
good.
great. But here's the downfall of sitting Love for 3 years. Okay, he's already going to be due up for a contract. Yep, Mike knows he's due up for a contract. And after the season that he just had,
he's going to want.
Yeah, they were the youngest team in the playoffs. So now they're going to be forced to, okay, who do we keep and who we did let go? 49ers are going to be in the same situation, but they have another year of control with Purdy before they have to do a contract.
Yeah, but there's a big difference there. I feel like this is another Daniel Jones situation. And I feel like they're going to give Jordan Love this dumb contract. I don't think they'll give him highest paid. They're going to give him some
no, and I don't think he deserves to be the highest paid.
No, I don't think he'll be the highest paid. No,
but he's gonna warrant some percentage of the team's salary cap, and that in and of itself, that's just ridiculous. If he wants at even 20% of the salary cap, that's ridiculous. I think he's maybe $38 million a year if he's gonna pan out, right? But that's my thoughts on it, Mike. I don't think he deserves to get a major contract. Maybe give him a 1 year. Treat him like Kirk Cousins has been treated. Let him prove himself multiple times.
Prove yourself contracts year after year.
Yes, yeah, that's basically Kirk Cousins' career, right? Prove yourself contracts year over year. I think they need to do. They don't necessarily need to do that with Love, but do a 1 year contract. Just okay. Let's see how consistent you can be. Then we'll pay you. Because if he comes out demanding, if you look at his season as a whole, he was less than 50% in terms of a quarterback that people were talking about, right? So he has no leg to stand on when it comes to, I need to be at least a top 5 paid quarterback. You ain't shit, bro. You ain't shit. It's so simple. But that sucks. Green Bay's going to think about paying him. I hope they don't.
So I think that's good on that game. But with the Lions and Bucks, this game was a lot closer than I thought it was going to be. A lot closer than I thought it was going to be. The Lions at home are a very good team. You got the Bucks on the road, not a great secondary. You never know what Baker Mayfield's going to show up. And I thought it was kind of a little bit of sloppy play by the offenses for most of the game. Leading into that fourth quarter, it was 17-17. You wouldn't really expect that out of these two teams because I didn't feel like either team had the defense really that should be holding either of the offenses.
Mm-hmm.
So I just think that the game shouldn't have been what it was. And Baker Mayfield came out, at the end. Actually, I have a question for you guys. Why was Tampa Bay going for that 2-point conversion?
I have no clue. I couldn't answer that, dude.
Really seriously were they just so confident they were going to score another touchdown that instead of trying to go for the tie, they were going to go for the win? Because they didn't get it. So let's say they marched down the field and they scored that last touchdown. Now you have to get your 2-point conversion. I just am not a fan of coaches not taking the points. LaFleur did the same thing to his own team. They went for it on 4th down, turned the ball over instead of just kicking that field goal. Guess what? That game would have gone into OT had they kicked that field goal and made it. And Mike, what was my exact words to you when they didn't get that?
That field goal's gonna bite them in the ass.
And it freaking bit them in the ass. That's exactly what it did. I am just a fan of sometimes you have to take what's being given to you and just kick that extra point and have confidence in your team that if this goes into overtime that we're going to end up winning. They always say, play for the win on the road. But when it comes to I understand that in the middle of the season, I can get it. But when it's like lose and go home, I don't like those
Play
particular.
it safe, man.
Yeah.
Play it safe to win.
Well,
Get to the end.
did you guys? One thing I think that was overlooked at the end of the game, and it would not have been a likely scenario, but you know that the Lions took their last snap too early.
Mm-hmm.
Tampa Bay had one timeout left that they could have called it,
Timeout, punted,
and it would have caused Detroit to do their fourth down play, either
Yep.
punt it or try for a long field goal, and it would have left time left. There would have been time left on the clock.
Yeah,
where
Mike,
Tampa
but
Bay would have
that's
gotten the
not
ball back.
part of the script. It has to
Yeah,
be
I
the
know.
Lions against the Niners, and the Niners are going to beat them because everyone wants to not. They're trying to make as much money. They're not going to make money off the Tampa Bay. They're making money off the Lions fans, making them believe that they're going to go to the Super Bowl. So let's make as much money as we can. That's the script.
So, per our conversation with Matt, and I know I always like to mess with Matt when it comes to Jamar Gibbs, and he gets so pissed off. But when are the Lions going to realize that Jahmyr Gibbs should just be the guy in the backfield, and Montgomery should only be played in perhaps short situations, maybe goal line, 3rd and 2, whatever. Gibbs he is so much more explosive than Montgomery. I mean, when you think about that touchdown run that he had, he looks so explosive. Montgomery can't do that.
8.2 yards per carry, man, on
Yeah,
9 carries.
Here's their
Like-
stats. Comparing their stats, just rushing: Gibbs 9 for 74 and a touchdown. Montgomery 10 for 33, no touchdowns. Receiving, Gibbs had 4 catches on 4 targets for 40 yards. Montgomery had 3 catches on 4 targets for 14.
Yeah, it's just the explosive plays of Gibbs are so much more than they.
I don't care how far the Lions get. They need to fire their OC next year. They need to get a new one. Somebody that can utilize Gibbs. It's the OC's play calling and the fact that they're giving Gibbs such little touches. Or maybe there's something we don't know. I don't get it, man. I don't get it.
They did the same thing with Swift when Swift was there. You know what I mean? Like, I don't know. The Lions, when it comes to running backs, it's always a guessing game. It's always a guessing game. But
True.
yeah, it just overall, I wasn't impressed with the Lions win. Obviously, I'm sure Lions fans will say the same thing about the 49ers fans, but at the same time, there's no element, at dome.
If the Lions play like that, they're gonna lose next week.
Yeah, so obviously next week I am taking the 49ers to make the Super Bowl. Tony, what you got?
Niners.
Mike?
Niners.
Liar, you probably saying Lions.
As his hat turns blue in the light.
They've already got the spread. Niners are favored by 7. And weather is supposed to be clear and like 70 degrees.
Yeah, it's supposed to be really nice.
Really nice game.
Yeah. Let's move on to the AFC. So I'd like to talk. I want to end with the Kansas City Buffalo game. I think there's just a lot more to talk about in that game. So I was hoping Houston would pull off the win. I really did, because I just thought it would be really cool for that A. Stroud story. But I was very surprised that it was 10-10 going into the halftime.
So it was Baltimore's defense. Their defensive coordinator adjusted beautifully in the second half, man.
Well, he didn't even need – I didn't think he really needed to adjust it that much, because the only points that the offense put on the board for Houston was 3. The other one was from a punt. The other 7 points were from a punt return. I thought from the get-go the Ravens defense played great. I wasn't very fond of Houston continuously trying to run with Singletary. He's not that back. He's just – I understand good year, but when you're playing the Ravens – yards are going to be extremely hard to come by. And when they threw the ball, they did have some success. But whenever they run the ball, it just seemed like Singletary got back to the line of scrimmage, and that was it. Maybe he'd pick up a yard or whatever, but he was not – there was no yards to be had.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying you should abandon the run, but they just continuously were doing the same runs that had no success against the Ravens. I don't know if they saw something on tape that they felt was eventually going to work, but – yeah, and congratulations to Lamar Jackson. he finally looked like what he always what he looks like in the regular season. He finally looked like in the playoffs.
Yeah.
So congratulations to him. They're going to be hard to beat regardless. AFC Championship, Super Bowl. If Lamar Jackson plays like that, they are going to be super hard to beat. He was very good at taking what Houston was giving him. They would not let him throw the ball deep.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, fine, okay, I'll dink and dunk this all day. 5-6 yards here, 5-6 yards there. It doesn't matter. Two 5-yard plays is going to get you a first down. You don't always have to continuously trying to push the ball down the field. And I think eventually it just wore out Houston's defense because the offense couldn't stay on the field, and Lamar Jackson didn't try to press the ball. He didn't give Houston any opportunity to, for a turnover or change momentum or whatever it was. So it was really nice to see Lamar Jackson finally play up to par in the playoffs. And God, with that defense,
he ran all over them. I think Lamar did what Lamar does. And
I think the 42 rushing attempts by Baltimore tired them out.
Yeah. If
Lamar Jackson had 11 for 100, Justice Hill 13 for 66, Gus Edwards 10 for 40, and Dalvin Cook 8 for 23.
I think my favorite part of that whole thing is that Dalvin Cook might get a ring.
229 rushing yards.
It's crazy.
And
they played a clean game on offense. They had no turnovers.
Yeah.
And, it was a good. The Ravens are the team to beat. They will beat the Niners again if they play like that the next 2 games.
Well, you can't really count. We'll see how they look against the Lions, okay? Because you can't sit there and say, well, it was a super raining game. It was sloppy on
no, even then, the game's going to be – it doesn't even matter. I think the Ravens beat the Niners straight up again.
They're extremely capable. I really think right now the Ravens are the best NFL team. I don't think on paper they have the best roster, but they are playing as the best team in the NFL.
Yeah.
And I'm actually really hoping KC beats them. I would rather face KC than the Ravens.
You guys demolish KC if they go to the freaking house.
I don't know if you watched that Buffalo KC game.
I did. I watched. That's the one I watched.
Okay, so I mean, there's really not much else to say for the Houston Ravens game, but yeah, I was very impressed with Baltimore. Even though it was tied at halftime, they came out, they made their second half adjustments on offense, and obviously Houston didn't. I don't think there was very much they could really adjust to. They just didn't have an answer for that Baltimore's defense, as most teams have not all year, especially as of late.
Yep.
So, yeah. So with that said, now let's move on to the game I really want to talk about, and that's KC and Buffalo. I thought, hands down for sure, if I was a betting man, I would have bet on Buffalo in this game.
Me too.
I really thought Buffalo was going to beat KC. Kansas City now, and this is the thing about Kansas City is they always find a way to turn it up a level come playoff time. And when you look at them, you're like, oh, this offense is not that great because it hasn't been really anything spectacular all year. But then here comes the playoffs. Patrick Mahomes, some of the throws he made in that game, they were jaw-dropping. I'm like, sometimes he throws a ball that is not capable of being defended. And that's why Patrick Mahomes right now is the best quarterback we have in the NFL actively. Because he can make throws that I don't care who else tries to make them. He is the only one that can make some of the throws that he makes. And it's so weird because I was just so convinced that Buffalo was going to finally get over the hump. The Bills were going to finally beat Patrick Mahomes. They had everything going for them. I felt that they were just ready to go, and they were finally at home against KC. KC was finally on the road in the playoffs, and I was like, okay, let's see how Patrick Mahomes does on the road in the playoffs. And you would have thought they were playing at home. Didn't bother him one bit. Stephon Diggs needs to freaking go. He for a guy who runs his mouth as much as he does.
Drop that bomb.
Last year, the last 4 or 5 weeks, that homeboy disappeared. He was nowhere to be found last year at the end of the season. Same thing with this season. Last 4 or 5 weeks, where's Stephon Diggs? In the biggest game that matters, what did he do? 3 for 31?
And dropped
Three-
a 65-yard bomb.
3 for 21 on 8 targets.
For a man who sits there and runs his mouth about how he needs the ball and he needs this and he needs that, he sure does disappear when it matters. So, Diggs, maybe you should shut up and just play football. That's what you're paid to do. You're not paid to run your mouth. You're paid to catch the football. You should probably try doing that and just stop talking. I think he's gone in Buffalo. I don't think he's there next year, because the other thing too is Josh Allen's
Contract hit is massive.
It's like a double up.
It's 47.1 million.
But from what? Like 21 million or something like that?
18.6 this year.
So now Buffalo is in cap trouble because now they got another 20-something million going to Josh Allen. This was like
they got almost 30 million extra going to Josh Allen this next year.
That's crazy. And Josh Allen didn't play like well. Like I think he needed to play a lot better. Yeah, albeit Diggs didn't do what he was supposed to do. I do think that Kansas City, in my opinion on the whole game, is that Kansas City gets fucking lucky this season. Like with all the ref shit that happened with Kansas City in this game, like that pass interference call late in the fourth quarter that really was very, very, very fucking questionable. To Diggs dropping the ball, they get lucky, man. Like other than that, the game wasn't spectacular from a Kansas City perspective. Yeah, he made some amazing throws, but they didn't dominate the Bills. They barely beat them. And if Diggs catches that ball, different game. If that pass interference doesn't get called, which I don't think it should have, because when you look at the rule, the ball was still in Patrick Mahomes' hand when he touched him within 5 yards. That should not have been pass interference, and they called it. They did it in slow mo. Even the announcer was like, "Oh, I wouldn't have called that." Yeah, right. It's just everything always goes their way.
Missed field goal to tie it.
Yeah, dude, and a missed field goal to tie it. Like
the two worst words in Buffalo. Wide right.
Dude, he. I guarantee you, he's scared to go home. He's scared to go home.
I do feel sorry for all those fans that spent all those hours shoveling snow at the stadium.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but that was last week.
No, it
They
wasn't.
did it for nothing.
They just did it this last weekend.
There was no snow in that stadium.
No,
because they spent all that time shoveling snow.
That was last weekend.
They did it again this last weekend before the game.
But one thing that people don't give Kansas City enough credit for is their defense. I think it's been like 8 games. You know what the most points they've given up in a second half is in like the last 8 games? 7 points. Buffalo only got 7 points in the second half. But week in and week out, it's like when you look at it, it's like 7, 3, 0, 3, 7. Like they have not given up more than 7 points in the second half for a while. So that tells me that possibly if and by the way, Patrick Mahomes when trailing in the playoffs in the second half, dude is still 10-2. 8-2. Sorry, the next closest is Tom Brady at 10-11. So that should tell you that it doesn't matter what the lead is against Kansas City in the playoffs. Patrick Mahomes is capable of bringing them back no matter what.
And his 2 losses are only to Tom Brady.
Oh, really?
Mm-hmm. Those 2 losses are only to Tom Brady.
So here's my take, and I want to see your guys' opinion. If Kansas City goes into Baltimore, and let's just say they're up 9 points going into the second half, and with the stat I just gave you with that defense, do you believe Kansas City would win?
No.
Mike?
Depends on who gets the ball to start the half.
Let's say Baltimore gets the ball to start the half.
Baltimore wins.
Baltimore still wins? I'm taking Kansas City.
I'll take Baltimore.
I think that because of late, I think they might be the best second half team. And that matters. And that really matters. And on top of that, Patrick Mahomes has not turned the ball over in the playoffs either. So it's good. Kansas City or Baltimore's going to have to play just as clean of a game as Kansas City is.
Yeah, I can see that.
Yeah. So as much as I want to say Kansas City's not going to win this game, I think this game is more of a coin flip than what people are going to give it credit for. I can really honestly see this game going either way, and if Baltimore wins, I really truly believe they will beat San Francisco in the Super Bowl.
Oh, they're gonna go in hot, bro. They're gonna go
If
in hot.
well, let me finish. If San Francisco plays the same way they did last time, okay,
Mm.
they can't. Brock Purdy can't be turning the ball over. He can't be
More
making
turnovers.
yeah, because Baltimore also had 4 turnovers and they only scored 33 points. I mean, and that was
Well,
with a much short.
there was actually 5 if you count the one at the end of the game
Yeah,
after Purdy was out. But
I can't count that one because they didn't drive. There was no drive after that. So San Francisco basically handed 4 short fields to Baltimore. Well, three.
one of them was still 60 something yards, I think.
Yeah, they give them three short fields, and even at that, the game was never really out of reach. If you watch the game, like the game was never really out of reach. So with that said, I think if San Francisco plays a clean game, like it has to be 0 turnovers.
Yeah,
Like
I agree.
then I think they could beat Baltimore. But if they come in and Purdy throws an interception, at least I should say a costly interception where maybe it's a red zone pick again, or maybe San Francisco's backed up in their own side and he throws a pick, gives Baltimore a short field and an opportunity for a touchdown. I think that would have them lose. But I shouldn't be talking as if like
We're already gonna make it. Here is
Yeah.
to a Lions Ravens Super Bowl.
Yeah. Oh, by the way, I didn't even tell you guys. Julie sent me a picture on Friday, right before the games happened. Canada,
Yep. I was going to bring that up.
had talked about how it was. They were already advertising a
And-
Baltimore and San Francisco Super Bowl.
Because it's
Now,
rigged.
Here's another really interesting thing. The logo, the last 4, maybe 5 years,
Last 3.
has had the colors of both teams. But here's the other weird thing: the team with the less colors in it has won. So, Tony, when we're done, or anyone watching this, go look at the logo
Yeah,
for
I've seen it.
and it is purple and red, and it is way more purple than red. So, could we see 4 years in a row if San Francisco wins the Super Bowl? That'd be 4 years in a row. And basically, the NFL's like
Rigging it. That's rigged, bro. At that point, it's not. It's once, twice.
Last year the logo was green and red, and it was majority green. The year before that, it was orange and yellow for the Bengals and Rams, and it was majority orange.
Yeah.
So,
and I can't remember
the more color loses.
Yes.
Yeah. Whoever has more, never a 50-50 color split. It's always a majority one color more than the other.
So they're saying the Niners are going to win.
If there is a conspiracy theory and this is like how it goes, then yes, San Francisco would win the Super Bowl. When we get off the podcast, Tony, when we clear this out, go look at it.
Yeah, but I've seen them. That's why that's like the NFL. It's rigged, bro. And if it happens, it's rigged. I don't care what anybody says. It's fucking rigged.
What if that purple is actually supposed to be blue and it's Alliance Kansas City?
Bro, you'd have to be like that's purple. There's no way.
This is the photo that you're talking about.
Yeah, that's the Canada one.
Yeah, that's the Canada one. And it says in there, Reba McEntire, Usher, and Post Malone are slated to perform at San Francisco 49ers and Baltimore Ravens Super Bowl matchup on February 11th.
And that was last week. I thought that was really interesting. So, but I think we're talking.
What do you mean interesting? It's rigged. Okay, whatever.
Couple other things I wanted to bring up. The Lions signed Zach Ertz.
Yeah,
I saw that.
They signed him to the practice squad. They bring him in for probably bring him in. He has a lot of games versus San Francisco in his career.
He'll come in for situational stuff.
Yeah.
Couple of coaching things. Eagles are going to interview Ron Rivera for their defensive coordinator position.
Yep.
And the Titans are nearing a deal with the Bengals offensive coordinator Brian Callahan for their head coaching position.
I
Right?
still think the Titans should have gotten rid of Vrabel. I still thought that was a really bad
Dumb
decision.
move. I mean, so like the Raiders hired AP, and they're saying that they want to that we should get him as the DC. I'm like, he's not gonna go from a head coach to a DC, like because he wasn't a bad head coach. Like everyone was so surprised by that firing.
Yeah. So, but all right. Anything else you guys want to talk about? I think we're pretty good on this one.
Pretty good. Till next
Okay.
week.
Well, all right. Thanks everybody for joining in. Don't forget to subscribe. We will be back next week talking about Super Bowl.
Where the Niners win because the Raven is rigged. See ya.